Tariffs.
Tariffs. Tariffs is the most beautiful word to me in the dictionary.
The is going on? Well, everyone, it was fun while it lasted, but now it's time for us to pack our bags up and start applying to McDonald's because Donald Trump has now imposed a 104% tariff on all imports from China. So we're going to break down this latest executive order to see how it actually applies to us as dropshippers and really understand if dropshipping to the USA is officially over, along with my future predictions as to what I think is going to happen from this and a brand new Facebook testing strategy that I'm going to be using for the foreseeable future. So if I was to decipher these hieroglyphics and jibber jabber into plain English, basically the situation in a nutshell was that Donald Trump imposed a new 34% tariff on top of a tariff of 20% that was already put in place. So China retaliated with their own 34% tariff. So what we decided to do was remove our 34% tariff and decided to increase it, as you can see right here, to 84% on top of 20%. So our total tariff amount on all goods from China is now 104%. But if you're a dropshipper who is selling products that are less than $800, which is basically all of us, it's not actually 104%, but it's 90%. So it's still a pretty freaking penny. Now, after talking to my private sourcing agent and multiple 3PLs, that $75 per parcel charge, which I know sounds scary, which is going to go in effect on May 2nd, really doesn't apply to us because that is only for parcels shipped by international mail. Now, as dropshippers, we tend to use shipping lines like Express, for instance. That's the most popular common one. So that actually isn't going to apply for our shipping lines. However, we are going to get that 90% tariff. So what does this 90% tariff actually mean if you're a dropshipper selling in the USA? Well, the average winning dropshipping store usually has numbers like this where their AOV is about 60 and their cost of goods are about 15, so 4x more than it costs. Well, with this new 90% tariff that is going to be charged by your supplier, they're going to have to raise the cost because they're the one fronting the bill here, so it's going to be passed on to us. Our product cost is going to go from 15 to now 90% more, so in this instance, it's going to go to $28.50. Now, watch how these other numbers change, because if I wanted a 25% margin, then I would have to acquire customers for $28. Now, if I want that same 25% margin, I have to acquire customers for basically half the cost, which at scale, $14 cost per purchases is nearly impossible. And even to get to a measly 5% profit margin, I need to still acquire customers for cheaper than it was in the past to get to 25% with my old product costs before these tariffs. And on top of that, there are definitely going to be shipping delays and growing pains that occur as the de minimis rule has been removed, which was a rule that basically stated that any parcel under $800 would not be subject to any duties or customs. So that way, people could easily process the millions of orders that come through customs every single day. But now, all of those parcels are going to be checked and then added with the right duties, which is going to take a lot of time. And if you're right now selling to the USA, I would highly recommend updating your shipping times on your product page and checkout to properly reflect the delay that is going to happen. So as you can see right here, I typically do 7 to 14 business days, but I am now going to be changing this to closer to 7 to 21 business days because there are definitely going to be delays that occur. Now, you may also in your checkout settings have it in parentheses how long it takes, so make sure you update it there as well. So going back to our example store, what do I believe is going to personally happen due to these new tariffs and an oncoming recession that feels like it's almost inevitable in the USA? Well, for me personally, I believe that for most dropshippers, even if you stay at the exact same price and just live with the tariffs eating up that part of your margin, you are still going to have your conversion rate go down if you stay at the same price. I definitely believe that's going to be the case as the dollar drops down in value and people get a little bit tighter with their checkbooks and really only buy the things that they absolutely need rather than just a nice, cool thing that they want, like a home decor product. No, my friend, just like it's always been, but now more than ever before, the dropshipper that is going to make money in this new environment is going to be the one that can write the best copy and demonstrate how freaking valuable their product is to their target audience and how it is worth way more in value than the price that they're charging, even if they are charging a higher price, which they have to with these new tariffs. So there's no doubt about it. With these new tariffs, the only way that you are going to keep your conversion rate at the same cost or even greater is you need to demonstrate even more value that your product provides to your target audience by getting specific of the real biggest problems that they have and how your product is going to transform their lives so that you can justify going from whatever price you're currently at to most likely an increase of 30%, 50% more than you were originally selling. So in this instance, we're going to have to go from 60 to 90 to maintain that same conversion rate and actually still have margin to be able to scale our store, which means you need to prioritize selling higher ticket products if you're going to be in the US. Your average order value nowadays has to be in that $75 to $100 range, in my opinion, to actually make it work. So long gone are the days of these low ticket dropshipping products. Like for instance, the typical low ticket dropshipping product is usually a $35 AOV and it costs you around $10. But with these new tariffs, that $10 COGS is now going to go to $19. Just to hit a 25% profit margin, you need to basically get a 6 return on ad spend, which at scale is not happening, bucko. Now, before we get into all the solutions and alternatives that you can do along with my new Facebook testing strategy, I will say one of the biggest pros from this is that there are going to be a mass wave of dropshippers quitting that are newer because they are not going to want to deal with all of these problems, which means there is more opportunity for us as dropshippers to be able to sell products and be able to scale into greater numbers because our CPMs, there's going to be less people running ads, spending money. So CPMs on Facebook, TikTok, every platform are going to be cheaper. Along with once you have a winning product, you're going to have less competition, less people trying to copycat your website, your ads, stealing all that creatives. So you'll actually be able to scale to much greater numbers thanks to so many people now deciding to quit. So now with all the information, what are the solutions and ways we should be dropshipping to still remain profitable in 2025? Well, I would say if you're going to go through the gauntlet, the hell run of still deciding to sell in the US, then what I would recommend is hop into your settings into Shopify, go into the markets tab, and then choose the US market specifically and raise all of your prices on your products by at least 10, 15, 25%, sometimes even 50%. For me personally, what I'm doing is around 20% increases on all my products for people that are specifically buying from the US. Now, if I was to put myself in most of your shoes right now, where you were just testing products with the big 4 countries of US, UK, Canada, and Australia, you may be wondering, should I keep selling to the US? And for me personally, I would say no. I think things are way too complicated right now and that things are evolving way too often and it's too unstable to actually predictably sell in the US with confidence. And until things change, which literally could happen in 12 hours after uploading this video, I would say hold off on it. I don't think it's worth the hassle. I think things are way too out of control. So I would personally recommend sticking to these markets instead when you are testing products. And now I'll be choosing one of these 3 markets, which could be the big 3 of Canada, Australia, and UK. God damn it! Or you can pick a handful of the English-speaking European countries like Austria, Switzerland, Germany, Netherlands, or Belgium. And then finally, you can do the big 3 Scandinavian countries, which is Norway, Denmark, and Sweden. But keep in mind, before you start launching ads to those countries, make sure your supplier can actually ship to those countries and know what are the cost of goods to ship to those countries because it's going to be different based on the country. Your product might cost $30 to ship to the US and it might be $15 to Norway and $20 to Denmark. So you actually need to know what are your COGS before you start selling. Now, if you are going to be selling to European countries, then there are 2 apps that are absolutely essential. Now, the first one is a currency converter, which I personally prefer Bucks. It is completely free and it automatically converts the currency to the native currency of wherever the country is that your customer is coming from. So obviously my store is natively in USD. So if someone was coming, let's say from Canada, it would automatically convert to Canadian dollars. Now, the other big thing you need to have is when you're marketing to countries like Germany and Austria and Switzerland, obviously there's a big German speaking population as well. So what I would recommend is having an AI translating app on your store that automatically translates the language of your description and your copy into their native language as well. So the best app for this is Transy. Now there are multiple plans depending on the words on your product page. So typically I believe around 1,000 words or less you can still have on the free plan to automatically translate the language and increase your conversion rate. And the final thing to keep in mind when you're selling to European countries, even though I know I am no tax expert, I am a dunce at the end of the day, I make dropshipping YouTube videos for a living, is that when you are selling to European countries, you need to collect VAT. Now that's different for every single country. The United Kingdom is different from other European countries. Even Australia has different rules when it comes to taxes. So again, I am no expert by any means, but you should pretty much choose certain countries that you really want to sell to because it is a process of collecting a VAT number for that specific country. So now the most important part of the video, how are we actually going to go about testing products in this new wild, wild west on Facebook? Well, I'm still going to be doing ABO and having an ad group for each one of the frameworks of my ads. So in this example right here, I have 4 frameworks and each one of these ad sets has a set of 4 unique ads. So there's 4 different ads of pressure tests in this ad set, 4 different ones in problem solution, and so on and so on. But when it came to the actual ad set itself, the customizations were the same among all of them. So the locations, the interest, the age, all of that I left untouched. So the only difference is just the ads inside. But now what we are going to have to do is change things a little bit, especially when it comes to locations. I am no longer doing the US. So I am either going to be, as I said earlier, doing the big 3 countries, so Canada, UK, Australia, or I'm going to be doing those other markets, which is either the English-speaking European countries or the Scandinavian countries. So that's really the one main change I want to do But if I wanted to take this a level further, and this is something I am going to experiment with, is once I set up my initial ad set. So let's say I'm doing problem solution ads, and in this case, it is for the big three as the targeting. Well, now we can duplicate this ad set 2 times to include the other 2 markets that we wanted to hit to see where do these ads perform the best. So for instance, we already have the big 3 ad sets set up for problem solution ads. So the next one could be our Scandinavian countries. So we're going to label that Scandinavian, and obviously we're going to scroll on down. I typically do $20 budgets, and I set the ads to launch the next day at exactly midnight. So we are going to do that, and then we have to set it for the next day, just like this. And then hovering on down to locations, we are going to get rid of all the 3 countries that we have right here. And then we are going to do our Sweden, Norway, and Denmark. So we have our locations right there. So again, you can do this for each one of your frameworks. So you could essentially, for each framework, have 3 ad sets, and the difference is the locations, those markets that you're choosing. Now, obviously, that's going to make things more expensive. So pace yourself, know your budget, because if, let's say in this hypothetical example, I had 4 frameworks, but 3 ad sets for each one of them, then that's a total of 12 ad sets, each spending $20 a day, so $240 a day, which for most people, you don't have that budget. So I actually think it's more important early on to just split test the frameworks and just choose one market. And then once you have a framework that's working, let's say it's problem solution, that's when you can duplicate your ad set a few times to try the other markets and see if it actually outperforms in those markets instead of the first one you chose.